Morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of one of our customer cases. I must say, this will definitely be the most interesting session of today. So you have made the right choice today to join us in this journey. And this is about the out-of-home journey. Yeah? How do you improve on that one? And obviously we have one specialist here, Peter Blackburn, who is responsible for the international business in InPost. We do have a second speaker who is a client, Notion, and that's Michal Jedlicka, who is responsible for the global transportation of Notino. We have a lot of learnings on how you can improve and advance your businesses with different type of solutions. And it's not only about the locker boxes, it is about how do you improve on the total journey with your end client. So without further ado, Pete, hit it off.
Thank you, Ernst. Nice high pressure start to say this is the most interesting session of your whole day, so we'll try and live up to that expectation. Delighted to be here with you today and delighted to have the opportunity to talk to you a bit more about out-of-home delivery in Europe. But first of all, really grateful for Michal from Notino, who's joined us today to actually probably more interestingly talk about how we partner together and how out-of-home is supporting the Notino business in their significant growth across Europe and how we're together solving some of the challenges that the modern consumer presents and how we're helping each other grow in that journey. So my first thing is to hand over to Michal and let him just tell you a little bit more about Notino, and then I'll come back and tell you a bit more about InPost, and then we'll start to walk through some of the key themes that we partner on in our two businesses to try and grow across the European market. So Michal, over to you about Notino.
Thank you, Pete. Good morning, everyone. Pleasure to be here and pleasure to be 8 years with InPost and cooperate together. Let's say a few words about the Notino. Actually, Notino is celebrating already 20 years in the market. But guess what was on the beginning? There was a great idea to start selling perfumes online. Who from you would think that actually will ever buy the perfume online? 20 years ago. 20 years ago. It was really a big challenge. Yes. Now you can see that actually we are in 27 countries around Europe. In those days, we are selling or shipping more than 24 million parcels per year. And also our business is still growing. We have many challenges. Nevertheless, we are working on it and we are really happy to have good partners. We are working on it together. So far, even COVID period is behind us. We are still keeping following like two-digit growth, which is really challenging, not only from the logistic perspective, but also from the distribution perspective. And we try always to fulfill our promise to customer to deliver on time and dedicate date. Peter.
Thanks, Michal. And so just a little bit more background on InPost, and actually our journeys are quite similar in length. So the InPost business was founded 25 years ago in Poland. I think many of you will know of Rafał Brzoska, our CEO, who founded the business in the Polish market all that time ago and has grown to be a network of nearly 70,000 out-of-home points across 9 markets in Europe. We're a combination of lockers-focused business and also PUDOs, but really focused on trying to drive the growth of out-of-home in the European market and change consumer behavior to really embrace what we think is the future of delivery. As I say, we sit across 9 markets in Europe, and we're growing at quite a rate. So last year, we added nearly 15,000 new points to our network. And if I just show you the history of our growth across Europe, you can see we've grown our network nearly 10x over the last 6 years, leading to sort of 69,000 points at the end of this year and continuing to grow into 2024. So we see huge opportunity out of home across Europe and obviously investing very heavily to expand our network across the region and then partner with the likes of Notino to support the growth of out of home with their consumer. So I just want to now introduce what we're going to talk to you about today and the kind of the core themes around our partnership. So there are 4 topics that we want to run through with you today. The first is around delivering for the modern consumer. So Michal will talk a little bit about the Notino consumer and then how they have to think about solving for the challenges that that consumer presents. And then likewise, we'll talk a bit about how InPost helps them on that journey. The second one is, Notino has grown massively over a very short period of time and cover quite a number of markets in Europe. So they have to think about being a global business, but also act with local specialism. And again, we'll just talk about how we partner on that subject. Thirdly, a topic I think you will have heard quite a lot about over the course of these 2 days and probably many of the events around the industry. Speed and convenience is a constant barometer of how this business serves the consumer. And again, we'll touch on that and how we work with Notino to drive an improvement in that area. And then lastly, sustainability. Again, super hot topic for this conference and many others. Again, we'll just look at how Notino are tackling that subject. And again, how we will partner with them on that. So I will hand over again to Michal just to kick off around the modern consumer and the Notino consumer and how they think about that.
Okay. It's really important to follow the trends and what our customer needs and how we can fulfill our promise to deliver the best way they want. Of course, we would love to have every man as our customer, but if you look closer to the statistics, we are really focusing for young generation, which are mostly omni-channel customers, which would like to join really nice shopping experience and also have really nice convenience with the shopping. As an online company, we also focusing for the digital, and even we are more online, we have also few retail stores where our customers can get better experience from the shopping directly.
Thank you. And I think as you can see from this data, which is from Statista, shows that Notino's customer skews heavily towards the Gen Z and millennial consumer. And then that's something that we've started to understand in terms of our business and its preference for that consumer as well. So in some research that we conducted quite recently, what we can actually see is there's still quite a high degree of dissatisfaction amongst that consumer group and all consumer groups actually around the delivery experience in Europe. There's still a strong proportion of people who are abandoning the cart, either due to the lack of available delivery options, or in fact just due to the broader delivery issues that they have and the experience they have in something so critical for retailers' brand experience. And likewise, we still see a number of consumers, a good number of consumers have issues with home delivery as well. So be that things impacted by the likes of the weather through to parcel theft at the doorstep. We're seeing increasing feedback from retailers across Europe around the challenge around fraud and some of those issues that they present. And then subsequently, what we're seeing is an increase in engagement around lockers in Europe. So again, that group of Gen Z and millennial are showing that 30% of them prefer lockers as their primary delivery choice. And then in the research that we conducted in the UK recently, we saw that 75% of Gen Z and millennial consumers have used a locker now in the UK, and that's continuing to grow. So this user group, who's super important for the Notino business, is increasingly demanding more from their delivery experience, and then increasingly moving to out of home to satisfy those demands. And then the way we think about that as a business, so in the research that we've done and the conversations we have very regularly with our retail partners, and what we hear back from them and what we hear back from consumers is the things that are super important to them are the likes of being a digital-first experience. So obviously everything is now mobile-led. Consumers expect a friction-free environment with delivery. They want to be in and out and done in no time at all. So from an InPost perspective, being QR code, label-less-led, mobile app-driven, that's been a big driver of the adoption of our services across Europe. We have a really strong focus on label-free products. So actually the example you can see here in the image is the UK's instant returns product. So this is where a consumer can drop a parcel at a locker with no label whatsoever. So just scan the QR code, put the parcel in the locker, shut the door, and then walk away. And so, we see quite regularly on our social media feeds people registering 1.5 seconds to drop a return and sort of competing with one another for speed. But the important point here is about removing the friction from that process and making this not a chore for either delivery collection or returning a parcel too. So labelless is a key theme. And then lastly, we see that reflected, I think Michal mentioned NPS in his business being super high in Poland in particular, we see that also across our markets too, and the feedback mechanisms, be that NPS in Poland, and then likewise Trustpilot in the UK. The consistent feedback we see from consumers is recognizing convenience, speed, simplicity, lack of friction, and solving for those consumer needs of the modern consumer, particularly the Gen Z and millennial groups. So just want to move on now to just looking more broadly at, how does a large pan-European business like Notino think about operating with efficiency and scale, and at the same time solving for the more localized needs of the different consumers in the markets that they operate within. So again, Michal, I'll pass back to you to let you talk a little bit more about how you solve for that.
Actually, I would not be able to do this job by myself, and I am thankful for my great transport team I am working with. And also, you can imagine to have like global approach from the Czech Republic around whole Europe. And what's the most important is to understand the market, the customer needs, and the habits. So we try to go deeper to the local specifics and help to understand with our partners what can be the best way how to deliver our products to the customer. And that's also important for us to have the local heroes. We are making the partnership, and we are doing business together.
Thank you. So yeah, the combination of centralized procurement, so my team gets beaten up by Michal's team for bringing scale to the table, but at the same time trying to make sure that we can work with them at a local level to solve for the specific requirements of those different markets. And so the way we look at that, obviously, Michal's mentioned Poland, and that's where we started with Notino. Poland is actually probably the hero market from a locker perspective across Europe. It has a huge preference for lockers across all consumer groups, and actually we see a very strong preference for the InPost brand in that market, given our heritage and success there. But also then we've now started to expand that partnership with Notino, so we work with them in different markets as well. So we work with them in France, and we work with them in Spain, where again we can bring our local knowledge around how out-of-home preference changes in those different markets. So for example, in France, whereas you see 82% of Polish consumers shopping with lockers, in France, out-of-home is typically 35 to 40% and growing. So the importance of the PUDO experience in France, and then more recently adding thousands of lockers to that experience. Again, we work with Notino and others to help them build out their out-of-home offering in the different local markets, whilst having a centralized view of a pan-European offer and the simplicity that brings. As I mentioned up front, speed and convenience is obviously a topic I suspect you've heard a number of times over the last couple of days and plenty of times before. But again, for this consumer and for a multi-channel business like Notino, this is one of the things that they talk to us about all of the time. They're super ambitious in this area. And again, I'll let Michal tell you about where their aspirations are and then how we support that.
Thank you. Yes, the speed is very important, but we also know that more than speed, it's the promise to the customer we are giving on our websites when the parcel will be delivered. Nevertheless, we are trying always to offer range of the delivery options, what customer can pick for his shipment. So far, into 2028, we have really challenging target to be able to deliver it within like 1.5 day from the distribution center. In those days, we are moving around 3 days, approximately around whole Europe, which it's a really great result. Nevertheless, we need to be available for our customers anytime, anywhere. And we see big potential in out-of-home delivery in the parcel lockers that actually this can help us and give the best experience to our customers.
Thank you. And in practical terms, with Notino in Poland, we've evolved on some of the things that are now a core part of the market offering. So next day delivery, obviously standard, but the core offering with a locker in particular is the 24/7 nature of convenience. And then also working with Notino around weekend delivery and Sunday collections and making sure next day flows through to Monday. But convenience is at the core of our value proposition across all of Europe. Again, we know that really is the king with the consumer. And we've learned a huge amount with the data science that we have over the course of the last few years in terms of how we need to think about convenience. Now, when I joined the business in 2020 in the UK, sort of just around the beginnings of COVID, we've been very focused on transport hubs as the location for where you would put a locker in the UK. But as we've seen consumer behaviours evolve, we've had to expand and think about the different sorts of locations that we should engage with and the sorts of coverage that we need to present to the consumer to ensure convenience. So in the UK, we have, I think, 62% of the population is within 7 minutes walk of one of our lockers. In Poland, that ramps up nearer towards 90%. But if you look in the pictures that you can see on this screen, you can see lots of different types of locations. So from the transport hub one that you can see in the main picture, we've really started to expand things like supermarket partnerships across Europe with a number of the major supermarket brands. And we see consumer feedback that that's a really high level of convenience for them as they can embed it into their weekly shop and into their daily habits. So convenience is about being the right place at the right time for the consumer, and how we work with the likes of Notino and understand their customer data is to make sure that we can expand our network to continue to expand what that convenience means to the European consumer. Lastly, again, another hot topic of sustainability. So this is an area where both of our businesses share a very strong passion and commitment to grow over time, and to do that in a very data-focused way. So Michal, lastly, if you just want to talk a bit more about how Notino think about this very critical topic, and then again, I'll wrap up from an InPost perspective before we take questions.
Thank you. Not only reduce the transit time, it's one of the steps how to help to the sustainability of our business, but also to reduce the delivery miles. In those days, we are operating already from 3 DCs, one, the main one in the Czech Republic, second in Italy, taking care about Italy, Spain, Portugal, and the third from Romania, cutting the delivery time for Romanian market, Bulgarian and Greece one. This summer we are going to open in our biggest market in Poland, the fourth distribution center, and we believe also this will help us to be more sustainable and also using the out-of-home delivery offers to fulfill our promise.
Thank you. And from an InPost perspective, our commitment as a business is to be carbon neutral by 2040. We're very, very focused on science-based targets and doing that in a sustainable, data-led way. There's lots of conversations in the market around delivery and sustainability. We're passionate about making sure that's backed up with good data. I know clearly, out of home has a good starting point in having hundreds of parcels delivered to one location versus single parcels delivered to multiple locations. And then in the research that we've shown, and the stat here is from our Polish research, we see lower carbon emissions in the final mile, but we know also there is more work to do on this space. So starting to work with the likes of Notino and sharing more granular data around the emissions at a parcel level, and then whilst kind of working on some of the more systemic changes of the business and our core ESG strategy is taking us towards that 2040 goal. Lastly, my marketing team made me put these pictures up because one last thing is that we are really trying to enhance our brand across Europe. So with that younger consumer in particular, and helping drive awareness of out of home, and our passion for making sure more people are aware of this delivery experience and have the ability to access it when they shop online. And we're raising the awareness of that with some of our branding, with the likes of the Polish football team, the Tour de France this summer, and then if any Newcastle United fans in the room, the Newcastle United sponsorship here too. So I've done my duty to marketing, but actually it's a super important point that we're trying to raise the awareness of out of home in Europe and continue to drive the growth of that in all of the markets that we're present, because we're passionate about that opportunity for the consumer. So look, thank you for listening. Hopefully it's been useful just to kind of walk through those 4 key topics of how do we solve for the modern consumer, how do we look at speed and convenience, excuse me, how do we look at sustainability, and I'll hand back to Ernst to take questions from the floor. But thank you very much, and thanks again to Michal for joining us.
Well, thank you guys for leading us through, and I guess Mr. Lewandowski, the Polish striker, will have, when he buys a fragrance for his wife, he probably use the InPost locker system as well. So that's part of the good news as well that we learned today. I must say I learned a lot, because 10 years ago I wasn't even considering using a locker box for any type of thing, and I was still going back to the retail shop to buy a perfume for my wife or my daughter. So the landscape has definitely changed in my favor, because the chances that I will buy something wrong for my family as well in the perfume business is also probably the chances are being reduced that I have to return it. So thanks for making that happen already. Any questions from the floor on sort of this out of home delivery optimization that we learn about, and also in this typical retail sector that is also very sensitive to the higher end of emotional products? Any questions from the audience already? All right. So let's take a few questions to you guys as well. I do have a personal question for you, Michael. So
Okay.
one of the things, so if I would buy a perfume, right, or a fragrance in there, and there's probably 90% chance that I will pick the wrong product type of thing. Can you help me on that one as well? Sort of, when I put some parameters in how my wife normally behaves, would that be helpful that you can sort of help me to pick the right product?
Definitely. There may be two ways. First, if you already bought a product, and we can be proud for our service Notino is offering to our customers that actually you're for free to return it if you really pick the wrong one, and we're happy to help you to deliver the correct one. On the other side, also you can buy discovery box where can be few fragrances you would like to try or let try to your wife, which would be the best for her, and then we can supply you with the product you really want.
Okay, we already covered one of the key takeaways of this session, so thank you for that one. So Peter, as well for you, sort of, you talk about this massive expansion that you guys are doing, and I do remember the old days when Raphael was still there and creating this vision, and I would say sort of, let's say we had a very poor performing incumbent in Poland that obviously endorsed this massive growth that you have been taking. So if you would take that sort of on a bigger scheme of things, how has that evolved for you guys over time?
Excuse me. Yeah, so Raphael is still very much still involved in the business. I can guarantee you that. We hear from him regularly, particularly if things aren't going quite right. But yeah, so I mean, in terms of how that's evolved, I think where we have a real benefit as a business is our Polish business, and some of the things that we've spoken about today create a very strong benchmark for us around what works and what the consumer wants. And then we have a brilliant feedback loop on that in Poland. So we have sort of near on 11 million app users in the Polish market, which gives us a very live temperature check around what works. So we have this, I guess, benchmark business on which we can then learn from. And then we've taken that into our other markets across Europe to expand very, very quickly and actually move even faster because we start with all of that knowledge in the first instance. So as I mentioned, I think the UK business, when I joined 4 years ago, had about 900 lockers and is now at 7,000. The French business, when we acquired it from Mondial Relay, obviously had no lockers at that point. It's nearly at 4,000. So our rate of expansion is increasing because our knowledge is getting faster and faster, but it's coming from a parent or best practice model in Poland that we can use to replicate.
Okay, cool. And then also there, sort of the usage, and I was triggered by some of the numbers that you presented about sort of the usage by the end consumers. And I would figure that would be your data, but it's also being presented as InPost data. So you capture all of these data on a meta level to see sort of what typically is the user group, and how do you share that between yourselves to optimize the total customer experience?
Yeah,
for both of you. Yeah.
Perhaps if I start and probably more interestingly from Michal. But yeah, I think the data I shared was based on some market research that we do. But obviously we have a strong interaction with our consumer, and we can understand how they're engaging with our services and our products, and how we need to iterate on those. I think the exchange of that data with retailers and then the retailers' feedback back to us is absolutely critical in evolving our product and our value proposition, because without that, we're ultimately solving for their consumer. So, I think we take a combination of external insight and then the data that we see live in terms of how consumers are using us across different products in different markets with different retailers and different solutions, and then we share that to identify where there are opportunities to enhance that product and get feedback from the retailer around the things and needs that they have for their consumer. But I don't know whether you want to build on that, Michal.
Yeah, we follow and we monitor our data from our side to really look how we can move our cooperation further, and if we see some gaps, we bring them to the table and we are trying to negotiate how we can improve it together or how we can learn from each other.
Cool. Thanks. Questions from the audience yet? No? All right. So then one of the other statistics that you were presenting was also the first-time users and they seem to be sticking to the solution as well. Assuming that we get more and more younger people, so they grow up with a new, I would say, process or paradigm that always, if you want to do shop online, you go for the locker boxes. How would you see that? It's not necessarily speculative, but how strong is that trend?
I think the key is, I mean, obviously that user group is very important and brings additional growth and incremental growth for partners like Notino. So they are a very critical user group. They are also probably the most challenging, but also potentially the most lucrative user group too. So all of the conversations we have with the retailers all of the time is, it's a really difficult time right now, both to acquire new users and then to retain them. So consumers are quite fickle because their demands are much higher. And then again, as I sort of mentioned in the topic, that consumer in particular has super high demands. If you think about how they experience life outside of delivery, it's not their entire experience. It's all through your mobile. It's all about kind of no patience, kind of no friction. Kind of I want it now and I need it the way I want it. So that's really challenging, obviously from a delivery experience and from a retailer e-commerce experience point of view. But it also sets a brilliant standard that if you achieve for that group, you're going to solve for everyone else too. So. I think we see that trend continuing. I think consumer expectation around delivery is only going to increase because some of the data we see is they're still dissatisfied with the experience that they get. And if you look at the amount of money retailers invest in, e-commerce retailers invest in the checkout experience from the point of acquiring a new consumer through to personalizing that experience and ensuring the majority of them then convert to purchase, the post-purchase experience in terms of delivery and everything else still has a long way to go to sort of satisfy those demands as well. So I think it's only going to stay around. I think the standards are only going to increase, and then I think businesses that like ours and others in the market are there to try and raise the bar and improve their standards too.
Cool. Thanks. And just to rephrase the question for you a little bit, sort of, you're working on a high-end product with a high emotional value. So probably many times is the gift item or personal type of thing. So how important do you sort of assess the different types of delivery options, and when is this going into play that this is standing out from the other options?
Well, good question. I have to say that the delivery option is very important, especially if you think about the Saturday, Sunday delivery, when actually the parcel lockers can give us this option for the customer who are really busy during the weekdays, especially maybe on the Friday as well. But maybe I will go back also to the question you tried to answer it, and I would like just to confirm that we see on our numbers, I mentioned we had like 24 million orders or shipments in last year, and we saw that actually we increased by 5% the out-of-home delivery in comparison with the home delivery service. So also here we see that actually it's became more preferable option for the customer.
So yeah, so one of the characteristics of your product line is there's a lot of weekend type of gifts and shopping. So you have to have a different type of solution. Okay, now I get it. So thanks for that. But if you sort of expand a little bit on the challenges that Notino faces now in the market, is this really sticking to your core product, or you're planning to expand it to other products and services as well? How should I see that?
Though definitely in those days the biggest challenge is be available with our shipments 24 hours, 7 days per week, to have really this option to our customers. So it's one of the most focusing ones.
Yeah, so still sticking to the perfume business and the beauty segment.
Yes. Okay, we started like 20 years ago only with perfumes. Now I can say under our portfolio and the sellout, it's like 50% of the perfumes. The rest it's with the beauty, with the hair, and also we have a corner for men. So every man is more than welcome to shop on our website.
Well, thanks for clarifying that, and that's I will tell that to my wife as well. So I make 2 points in one day for you. So thank you very much. Pete, so also a little bit sort of elaborating on the future, because you're talking about this expansion in what have you been doing in this one? Locker boxes is still your business, but you also move into, like in France, you're moving much also in home delivery. And how do you see that the trend shifting between the two or 3 options that are available?
Yeah, we don't actually offer home delivery in France. So the majority of our business is out of home. So and then the way we look at out of home is two product solutions really, or two consumer locations. So one is the lockers, and then the other is parcel shops. And so we acquired the Mondial Relay business in 2021, and the heritage of that business is way more Pudo focused, and then we've supplemented that with lockers. Whereas the sort of InPost core markets that sit around the Mondial Relay business, so Poland, obviously, Italy, UK, we've started with lockers and then we've supplemented that where we need to with Pudos as well. So we offer home delivery in Poland, but actually the core of our business is out of home, and we are passionate about making that movement from home delivery to out of home. So when you look at the growth, I think Michal mentioned 5% growth in his business in out of home. If you look at from our own performance point of view, we can see that the European B2C market is largely sort of flat or in slight decline, and our growth is in strong double digits. So we're gaining share in that world, and because what we're seeing obviously is more consumers move to out of home as a preference. So I think both will obviously continue to exist, but we'd expect the market to continue to rebalance out a little bit more in favour of out of home. And then you see different levels of progress on that across Europe. So somewhere like the Nordics obviously is super passionate about out of home. Somewhere like the UK is still just around about 10% out of home penetration for delivery, but growing very fast. So depending on which market, kind of depends on where they're going to get to over the next couple of years. But across the board, we see a growth in out of home as a increasing preference for consumers.
And you talked about, you had different type of topics. There's also about the speed, and I would say speed and reliability is critical for you as Notino, right? In a way, and how do you see this sort of, how would that translate in additional repurchase business or repetitive type of clients? Do you actually measure that in a way, or?
Yeah, we are measuring not only like just the regular transport delivery lead time, but also the customer delivery lead time, means when the order is placed. Of course, when we look to the Europe, we know that there are the specifications for the Scandinavia, where actually they are not solely on the lead time, but actually on the dedicated date, which was promised on the website. Middle Europe, you will see that actually the customers are really focusing and sensitive for the lead time. Going to South, we even have some lessons learned that actually it's not the most important, but if you compare with the competition and the customer has another option to buy it and receive it sooner, that's actually the challenge we need still to focus on.
Right. So there's also one more question I still have left. Sort of in the way that you're digital by design, you've been disrupting part of the industry, both of you, in your own domains, and probably this is also why you have this nice fit. You grew up together almost, like, and then became engaged a bit later. How would you see sort of also how to attract talent in this type of businesses and how to retain those people, because there's a war for talent out there. How do you position yourself into that market?
Do you want to take that first?
So maybe I will start that actually we sometimes more IT company that actually the reseller, and in those days we are really like looking for the talents from the IT side. We have more than 350 IT guys in Notino, and it's still not enough. So definitely, like are many opportunities, and as a young company, we are still ambitious, and we would like to grow and looking for new ways how be closer to our customer and be really attractive for them.
Please.
Yeah, I think from an InPost point of view, obviously being a fast-growing business in Europe is attractive from a talent acquisition point of view. But I think in terms of what this business is about, its history is really important to how it looks at how it approaches the challenge in front of us. So our business is fundamentally founded by an entrepreneur 25 years ago, and it still has a huge entrepreneurial spirit. So whilst we've hit scale and we're continuing to grow quite significantly across Europe, the business still runs at a speed that is certainly haven't been used to prior to joining the business. It's super fast, tech-led, very consumer-driven. I know that's sort of quite a catchphrase for a lot of businesses, but genuinely our focus has been around the consumer experience first and working backwards from that, and that's what the business has built its foundation on, particularly in Poland. So from a talent perspective, we look for really high caliber people who can live with that pace, but are passionate about making a change and driving, really disrupting an industry, and to use your words, and then so bring the capabilities that we'd expect as part of that, but bring a real passion and an attitude around wanting to make a difference and change something. And you can see in our business, the people who thrive are, bring that character in spades. And so I think we've got a super attractive proposition for people to join, but equally we expect a lot of people as part of it.
No, but I think you have to be, a little bit explorer in a way. Yeah, yeah. First of all, digital. Second, probably also entrepreneurial and willing to make, willing to go for the extra mile as well. Sort of that is probably the DNA in both of your companies. So really good to hear. Any sort of, final learnings that you would like to share from this journey, Michael? First.
So never give up from new challenges which are in front of you. And even you think sometimes that there are some stops in front of you with the cooperation, find a way and work with your partners, because the partnership is probably in this business really important, because the face of the Notino in the last mile is actually our partner and his service, really on.
Pete?
Yeah, hard to follow that. But I think hopefully some of the insights we've shared, and particularly the comments from Michal have been helpful for some of your business if you can see the crossover with that. I think from our point of view, you can see the changes that are going on in e-commerce, and it's a really challenging market and has been for a little while. And therefore, I think that puts huge emphasis on having real confidence in your value proposition end to end, and delivery is a huge part of that. And so from my point of view, we see really strong consumer demand for what they expect of a service. And therefore, we see how out of home can solve for that. And then I guess the message to retailers is, if you want to try and address those needs from that consumer base, and I genuinely think you have to explore out of home as part of your value proposition. And naturally, I hope that's a conversation with us too.
All right. You do have a stand here, so you can do further advertising with these guys later on. I would like to summarize a few things. We learned about sort of how the partnership can really work in terms of openness and trust. I would say there would be some of the key characteristics between yourselves in order to make that happen. Super important also for a product that is really on the high end and has this emotion type of thing, to be super secure about the delivery times and how to actually advance on your customer experience. With a partner in this one. So you do have other partners, we know, but this is also now one of these critical components to keep a sharp eye on, also for the audience when you want to move ahead. I would say also it's incredibly nice to see sort of that similar journey that you have been going through. So it was very enlightening to me, at least. I learned a lot about the Notino business, but also equally about parcel lockers that I've been using also increasingly more and more over the past few years. So definitely give a big hand to our two speakers today. So thank you very much, Pete. Thank you very much, Michael. And thank you all for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.